Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, you know, this is my first day doing this. So. Okay, so moving right along again, it is a level playing field because you just need to accumulate points. So everything that you're doing for your business, sending out postcards, marketing, coming to meetings like this, doing anything you can to promote and get listings will give you points. And then at 5 points equals 1 ticket. 1 ticket, your name goes in the drawing and they just pull tickets. So you might have 1 chance, you might have 100 chances depending on your points, but get them in because, you know, I hear Cabo's pretty nice. I don't know. And you do have that chance. So make sure you get your points into to your manager and that would be amazing. Okay. Also, if you've not downloaded the VAC onto your mobile device, it's an excellent tool to help you stay on top of everything while you're out and about. So if you don't know how to do that, check out Chris Weeder is doing trainings on it. I know Maria, where's Maria? Right there. She's awesome at this too. And so we can all help you get it up and running and help you grow your business. Okay, without any further delay, I want to get started. We have a fabulous speaker today. His name is Adam Nishikawa. He is Vice President of Exchange Resources, and he has spoken for us on several occasions for several years. And you're going to learn a lot. So 1031 exchanges are an awesome tool. I'm going to turn it over to you, Adam, and say thank you so much for driving all the way here. This can just about help. And I'm going to turn it over to you. And if you just want to stand in the middle here where they can see you, that would be great. Oh, here, let me do that for you right now.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Adam Nishikawa, and the drive here was beautiful, so no sweat on my part.
Okay.
Today we're just going to kind of talk about the 1031 exchange, which has been just extremely popular at the moment as far as a program for a full tax deferral. But I always title my presentations "Why Pay Taxes Now?" because, you know, as you've probably dealt with a lot of your clients, those capital gains taxes are very significant. So as offering them a tool to defer all of those taxes is very valuable for them. And I'll start with a simple definition. So what is a 1031 tax deferred exchange? So many of you may have heard of it referred to as a loophole, but it is actually part of the tax code, section 1031. Biden hasn't eliminated it yet. And it is a transaction which allows an investor to defer the payment of all of their capital gains tax as long as they exchange like-kind investment property for like-kind investment property of equal or greater value. So one thing to note for the first part of this definition is it's for investment properties only. So primary residence won't count. Second homes, unless there's certain requirements, will not count. This is for investment properties. The second part is that it's for tax deferral. It's not tax free. So if they ever sell the property down the line, that's the point that they would pay those taxes. But in the meantime, they would be able to utilize all of those built up tax dollars as leverage for their new investment properties. And then when we say like kind, you know, this is a term that gets thrown out there a lot as, you know, I have a condo right now, do I have to go buy another condo? But it's actually a pretty broad term. So it's any investment property used in a business. So basically that could be a condo for commercial, could be a condo for land that's held for investment or business use, could be a condo for multifamily or single family homes. So there's really no limitation as to what type of real estate. Even oil and gas rights would qualify. So what is?
Excuse me, Adam.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I have to share the screen. Yeah, that's
I haven't redone this presentation in a while. I don't know if they want to see it.
okay. Can't see the screen. Thank you, Katie. All right. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So like I said, like kind is the qualified use of the property. So these are just some examples, you know, single family homes, multifamily, commercial, manufactured homes. If they're secured to a foundation, will qualify, and that they pay property taxes and own the land. Air rights, oil and gas rights, and then of course, co-ops and the Delaware Statutory Trust, which you may have heard it's gaining momentum as far as popularity goes. But all of these could potentially qualify for 1031 exchange. So what does not qualify? So personal property, stocks, and primary residences. So the one instance that you may see somebody take advantage of both the 121 exclusion, that primary residence exclusion, and the 1031 exchange would be, for instance, if you had an investor who owned a duplex and they lived in half the property and rented out the other half of the property. Under those circumstances, it is possible that they will qualify to take their exclusion on half the property, 50%. They'll take their 250,000 or 500,000 tax-free, and then the remaining balance will be 1031 exchange. So in that example, they could utilize both programs to not pay any taxes. So that's just one example where the 121 exclusion may be combined with the 1031 exchange. But yeah, these other two options, stocks are not qualifying, and personal property. So like real estate investment trust do not qualify if you have any clients trying to exchange into that type of one of the, I would say, top 3 requirements for a 1031 exchange is how you hold title to the property in a 1031 exchange. So a lot of investors own properties in corporations, in trusts, in their individual name, as husband and wife, etc. Or they may be tenants in common. All of these details are important because essentially we are just a number to the government. So when they're doing a 1031 exchange, the government wants to see the same number on the sale as the purchase. So if John Doe sells it in his individual name, he needs to go purchase in his individual name or in an entity that is a disregarded entity. So it has to be in his name. So one example of a disregarded entity could be a single member LLC due to the fact that that's still filed on his personal tax return. That's why the name doesn't really matter, because it's still filed on his tax return. So it could be in his name or the single member LLC. When you add a multi-member LLC or certain corporations, they will have their own tax ID numbers. And that's why it wouldn't be eligible for him to go from his individual name into one of those corporations or other entities, because that's not the same taxpayer. So a lot of times, when I have a lot of co-investors or people that are structuring investments with each other, the easiest way to make sure that they can part ways simply would be the tenants in common structure. If they buy an undivided interest with each other, if you got 2 investors or 3 investors, 50%, undivided interest, it's easy that when they sell that property, they can split up. They can take their 50%, they can go buy their own property, because I've seen a lot of partnerships not get along over the years. They're fighting or whatever's happening, and it's easier when they have that option to exit. If it's in like a limited partnership or in a partnership or joint tenancy, it's way more challenging for them to split up and go their separate ways, since they've been filing taxes together for so long. So it's definitely something that I think I see most co-investors opt for that tenants in common structure. And that goes the same way when they go to purchase. If you have a client that sells something for $500,000 and they want to buy $1 million property with another investor, they can buy 50% of it as a tenants in common investor, and that will qualify. Any questions on holding title during a 1031 exchange?
What about trusts?
Yeah, revocable living trusts are fortunately also disregarded entities on their taxes. So they can buy, in their trust or put it in there immediately after. There's no issues with that.
Okay.
Usually they just want to make sure it's in the trust by the end of the year when they file taxes anyway. But an irrevocable trust, I still run into those. They were super popular in the 70s and 80s, at least my clients that have those. Their heirs actually don't get a step up in basis, meaning they don't get that tax break when they inherit the property. And so it's not really beneficial to the clients to have an irrevocable trust, as well as that entity you have to exchange within the irrevocable trust. It cannot be moved out for any reason. So I would say it's good to make sure that's a revocable living trust. Next, I would say this is the second most important issue is when you're doing a 1031 exchange, a lot of people think you just have to reinvest the equity from the sale property. So in this sample, it's $1 million sale. There was a $300,000 loan on the property. When they do a 1031 exchange, they have to actually make sure that they take all of the equity, $700,000 of equity, and get a new loan of $300,000 or greater on the new property. You can actually get taxed for not replacing the debt in a 1031 exchange. So I know that that can be challenging and a little bit of a nuisance. A lot of our clients are buying up in value or at least equivalent because they don't want to pay any taxes. So for them, it's not such a challenge, but say you have a client that decides, I don't want that much of a loan. They can bring in other cash to satisfy that requirement from other accounts, or they can opt to pay taxes on that account. So they can do a partial exchange and opt to do something like that. But for full tax deferral, it's going to be that full replacement value of debt and equity rolled into the new property. So when I say, debt and equity, if it's $1 million sale, there's going to be closing costs. Fortunately, those closing costs can be deducted. So say in this example, you assume there's $50,000 in closing costs. Their target replacement value would actually be $950,000 for full tax deferral. Anything under that, they pay prorated taxes, but as long as they're equal to or greater than that number, then they are not going to be paying any taxes. So, any questions on replacing debt on that new property? Awesome. All right, do vacation homes qualify? I know here in this vacation heavy place, you're going to have some vacation homes, and there are circumstances where the client can be using these personally, but also as an investment and qualify for the 1031 exchange. So this is pretty much on paper what is required. And I always tell my clients, consult with your CPA, see what they need to do to support your position if you are looking to 1031 exchange a vacation property. But basically, it must be held for at least 24 months. That's the IRS's guidelines for long-term investment. So they want to see that 24 months of ownership. Number 2 was property is rented at fair market rates for at least 15 days of each of the previous 2 years. So they want to see rental history each year for the preceding 2 years. Fair market rates, I would say most CPAs have told me they're comfortable with 70% of market as fair market. 70% and higher, you're not going to have any issues. And then if it was not used for personal use, for 14 days or 10% of the time it's rented, I don't know how they actually know how much you're using it personally, but this is on paper what they require. So this is for vacation homes to qualify. And of course, the revenue procedure is 2008-16 for anybody that wants to have that supporting documentation. So when you're talking to 1031 exchange clients or investors in general, I think it's best to kind of follow a few discussion points. The first one is definitely going to be helping them understand their tax liability, because I get a lot of calls right before escrow closes on their sale saying, I didn't know I owed this much in taxes. I want to do a 1031 exchange. And if you can help them avoid that kind of a stressful crunch right before they're selling their property, you're just going to look way better to them as an agent and a consultant who's helping guide them through this process. Having them fully understand their tax liability will help them plan accordingly for you to both help them list this property and hopefully reinvest those proceeds into their new purchase. And I always say 2 commission checks is better than 1. And then number 2 is, how is their current asset performing? Try to understand exactly how their return is looking on that property. If a lot of people in California especially are not really cash flowing on the property, their payments just enough to cover debt, or they have all these expenses in certain properties. So helping them understand how you can help them improve that performance, whether that's buying in a different part of town or diversifying into a duplex where they have more income. I think those are all good points to bring up. So helping understand their investment goals. I think some of the lowest hanging fruit is definitely depreciation. So a lot of clients that have owned their property for what is the maximum allowable depreciation schedule on residential property is 27.5 years. If they've owned it for that amount of time, they're actually out of depreciation or about to be. So helping them understand how doing a 1031 exchange into a property that will give them more depreciation will help them on their taxes at the end of every year. And so that's a great way to kind of get people interested. Oh, maybe 1031 exchange makes a lot of sense from a tax planning perspective. And then understanding their estate plan and how you can help them plan for the future. Because people that are retiring, they want to help plan for their future income needs and as well as their kids and whatever other goals they have. And maybe the one property they currently hold is not enough to help with that moving forward in the future. So all good things to think about when you're having that discussion with them. But definitely the pre-planning part, I think, is the best part to avoid headaches and stress on everyone's part. So now that I've kind of gone over those requirements, this is the most common 1031 exchange you are going to see, and this is the delayed exchange. So it's also called the starter exchange or straightforward exchange. Basically, this is the sell first, buy later program. So they're going to sell their property and list it just like any other piece of real estate with the proper disclosures and the proper CAR forms in the contract. But basically, once they are in escrow, that's when a company like ourselves would get involved. You have to hire the qualified intermediary before the close of escrow. That's because the exchange agreement that we have them sign directs those funds away from their personal accounts at that closing, which is the taxable event, and into a qualified holding account at the bank. We do about 5,000 of these every year, so we'll create 5,000 separate qualified holding accounts for each of our clients. And once the escrow closes, you're going to see that zero. That's the close of escrow on the sale of property. That's kind of when crunch time starts. They're going to have 45 days to identify replacement properties. 45 days goes by very quickly, especially in this market with everything flying off the market in 2 days. It's a stressful time, and a lot of our clients, they're stressed. They're having a hard time. And so being aware of that 45 days, the one thing that I've seen a lot of people do from the sale side is putting in a potential extension on the sale escrow if they're not ready for that acquisition or they're really having a hard time finding something, to give them an extra 10 or 15 days to go ahead and keep looking. Of course, no contingent offer is really accepted at the moment, but as soon as escrow closes and they have that cash in hand, they can be putting down earnest money deposits and making really aggressive offers. 45 days to identify, and then they have to close escrow on one of the identified properties by the 180th day. So you cannot change this list after 45 days. That's the end of the identification phase. So they have until midnight to submit that form back to us, and then they have to buy one of those properties. So I always tell my clients to don't turn it in until closer to the 45th day so that you can amend it as needed as properties fly off the market, and then have the most up-to-date list by the 45th day. The 3 property rule and the 200% rule are the two options for identification. So we'll send your client a form, and basically they fill that form out with either 3 properties using the 3 property rule. Those 3 properties, the value does not matter, but it must be a specific address and a percentage if they're buying a percentage of the property. And then the 200% rule is basically if they sell a property for $500,000, they can identify up to $1 million of real estate, as many units as they would like. So that's more for the diversity or diversification play. But that's pretty much the delayed exchange in a nutshell. Any questions on the delayed exchange?
Yeah, could you repeat what the 180 is again?
Yeah, that's the full time to go ahead and close escrow on your identified properties.
Oh, the full,
Exactly.
Time.
So you have until the 180th day to make that closing happen.
okay.
Which after escrow? Or from the start?
From the zero, right?
From the zero.
From the zero.
Right,
From the
not-
sale closing.
Not from the 45.
Correct. From the
Okay.
zero.
And the 180 days is day of close on one of the identified properties.
The 180th day will take place exactly 180 days from the sale escrow close.
Say, okay, sale, okay.
Correct.
It would be
That would be the same. That would be the. That would be zero,
Okay.
and then it would go from there. Yeah. Because it's midnight of the 45th day. So yeah. Any other questions on the delayed exchange? And remember, this is 90% of the transactions, or 95% is going to be this type of an exchange. We do simultaneous exchanges as well. They're buying and selling in the exact same day. Pre-1984, they were all simultaneous.
I'm sorry, Adam.
does that mean?
And Spectrum's out walking out front.
Oh, they just disconnected us.
Who did?
Legendary that brought us for computer guy in, and I think they just disconnected us. So rude.
We got lots of food in the
So
back.
Anyways.
You can go this way and knock on Stacy's door and ask her to please put us back. And questions in the meantime.
Yeah, Adam,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, just to get this clear. So 0 is close of escrow. 45 is when you have to have ID the property.
Correct.
And between the 45 and the 80, is that when you're able to request for extensions and?
That's when you'll be working to close on one of those identified properties,
So from 45 to 180 is when they're
closing.
closing, okay.
Correct. So that's why the 45 days does not require you to be in escrow during that time. It's this current market we're in kind of requires you to be in escrow during that time. But you don't actually have to be, it's not
Okay.
required.
Okay.
But if they're listing it on there and it's not in escrow, they get outbid on all 3 of them, that will put them in a bad position because they wouldn't be able to complete their exchange.
I think I just lost all the Zoom people too.
Oh, wow.
Zoomed right on out of there. Huh?
And they won't see this.
So I will briefly discuss, there is the delayed exchange, which is the most popular. The simultaneous exchange is that selling and buying in the same day, which we don't really see much currently. And then we also have a reverse exchange, which is,
No Zoom. Sorry, yeah.
oh yeah. I can speak for
Wait.
hours.
Actually, we're all still here.
Oh, yay! Thank you. We weren't sure if we lost you.
And we
No,
can-
still here.
We can see the slide, but we can't see the room.
Yeah, let's do this. I'm not sure something's going on with the internet. Somebody's here working on it, but they say it's not them. Wink, wink. Like, exactly. I don't, there. Okay, so
Can I
can you see the screen now?
Yes. Oh.
Yes, can see the screen.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes, we
Okay.
can see it.
Wonderful. Then, here, how's that? Okay. I think we're back online here. Okay, Emma, go ahead. Thanks. Okay, good, thanks.
Okay, so this is one option. This is called the reverse exchange. This is essentially, because the current market conditions we're in, like we opened up like 30 of these last month. Like they're getting a lot more popular because what they allow you to do is actually purchase the replacement property before you sell. So essentially, what you're doing in this time frame is the close of escrow on your purchase property is what starts the timeline. You'll have 45 days to identify what you're selling, which most clients know what investment property that address is. And then they have to sell it by 180 days, which there'd have to be something really wrong with the property to not sell it in 180 days. So it's kind of nice because it does allow them to make that purchase and guarantee they get the perfect property, regardless of, that potential challenge of not finding something. So that's done in 2 ways. There's option A, park relinquished property. So basically what we would do is we actually have to park one of the properties in a corporation just because your client cannot hold on to it for at the same time as their new property. So we'll park either their sale property or the new purchase if it's all cash and the lender doesn't, and there's no lender involved, that's going to have a problem with us being untitled. And then they have to, we'll deed it back to them as soon as they sell their other property. So it's simple from, explaining the process is pretty simple. It is a lot more work to do it, but it's definitely worth considering if your clients are scared they're not going to find something in 45 days, because it guarantees they'll find that replacement property. So they're searching, time frame does not start until they close escrow on that purchase. And they can even have listed the property by the time, once they're already in escrow on the purchase, they could list the property and have both of them closing, pretty near each other. But this will give them that option of not feeling too stressed about the identification phase. So it is getting more popular. Any questions on the reverse exchange or any ideas?
Just in general, Adam, is when somebody's doing a 1031 exchange, it's something that they're thinking, what, ahead of the game. Sorry.
Okay.
So it's strategically from a financial standpoint, they're considering this, it's not usually like, hey, let's just do a third 1031 exchange, right? So they're outright looking for other replacement properties in advance of sale of their current property.
Right.
That's kind of, that's what I've seen in the past, just from an investor standpoint. Do you see that, or is that the general trend?
Of people looking in advance.
Yeah.
I think people, they do that to an extent, but due to the current market, they get really hyped on a property they love and it's gone before they're able to purchase it.
Okay.
So I have a lot of people waiting a little longer before they start really looking. Of course, they tell their agent, send me all these properties in this area. This is what I'll be looking for. But realistically, none of those properties will be available when they're able to purchase it.
Cool. Sure.
In terms of percentage of replacement properties, are you seeing more single family residences or more investment properties? Do you see a trend in either direction?
No, I think everyone has individual investment goals. So some people will say, I only like multifamily, or I only like condos. Okay, people don't really say that. I only like single family homes. There's certain things that people like to invest in, but it all depends on their personal goals and what they want to accomplish. I do know that some people have goals in the future of renting it to their kids, which is completely allowed as long as it's fair market rent. And then some people have the goal to eventually retire in that home. So they're going to buy a single family home they love. They're going to rent it for a few years before they ever think they might recharacterize that as a primary residence. So, and one thing I should add is for a 1031 exchange to be valid, it must remain an investment property for 24 months after they complete the exchange. That's a minimum. That's so that your transaction doesn't get challenged if you get audited. And then after that, they understand life happens and long-term investment quota is the 24 months.
So after 24 months, they decide to move into it, make it their primary residence. When do they pay the capital gains tax?
Only if they sell the property.
Oh, okay.
So it'll be recharacterized as a primary on their taxes. And I always tell my clients to talk to your CPA before you do that.
So if they're,
We want everybody to hear.
so if they're living in the house after 24 months and they pass away, and it goes to their children, at that point, do the kids have to pay the capital gains?
They should still get the step up in basis. They should
As
not
long as they
pay.
live in it?
As long as they've owned it, right? So like when you pass away, traditionally, your heirs get a step up in basis, meaning all the capital gains taxes dies with you. So that's why the saying in our business is defer, 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 die. Because I know it's really your heirs do get that step up in basis. It's a nice thing. You're gifting your parents or your kids a property that they don't have to pay all of those accumulated capital gains taxes. So believe it or not, actually, most people don't do that. They need the money or want the money for whatever reason before they pass away. And so I think it's only something like 60% actually goes through that process. Everybody else, they want to gift their grandkids something, college fund, whatever. They end up selling the property because they want the cash for whatever reason. Or they have medical expenses, or that's their only way to raise funds for an emergency. But if you can do it, that's a great way to pass on property to your kids. I probably don't have too much time.
You've got about 10-15 minutes.
So boot is any cash proceeds remaining after the acquisition of the replacement property. You've probably heard that term. Basically, if we have any funds we're holding still for the client and they're done with their exchange, those are taxable funds. So we'll wire those back to them at that point. There's also mortgage boot. So want to make sure that they replace all of that debt. If they don't, then they will have to pay those taxes. So they'll get with their CPA and find out exactly what they're going to have to pay. But hopefully, if everything's done right, they won't have to pay anything. Acquiring the property out of state. So yes, 1031 exchanges are federal. Anywhere in the country, you can 1031 exchange property into, and they can defer all of those taxes. California, though, Franchise Tax Board has a clawback provision. So if you have any clients that do their own taxes, they need to make sure they file Form 3840 at the end of every year. That's just a reporting form letting California know. If they don't file that form, then they will have to pay those taxes at that time. So something to think about, and hopefully their CPA does it automatically. And then this is just a list of those closing costs that can be deducted. So when they're doing their sale, they can deduct title, brokerage, all of these things. And then at the very end, you see contractual conditions of the sale. Basically, if the buyer says, hey, I want you to replace the roof before I close, and they put money to do that, they don't have to spend that money on the replacement property. It's a deduction. So the contractual, and it has to be in the contract. If it's not in the contract, they still have to replace that amount. Partnerships, I always put this reminder on there. If you know it's a partnership and you see title is not clear, have that discussion early so that there's no surprises. We get a lot of calls from partners like, are partners selling the property or whatever? No, like, yes. This is, I don't want to have this discussion with you. You should have this discussion with your partner. So it's always important to find out what the structure is of the ownership. And then, when are those exchange funds accessible? Basically, once escrow closes, we're holding those funds. They can't have those funds back until the 45th day if they decide not to identify anything. Then we can send them those funds. So if they just want to give it a shot, which in this market, I have a lot of clients that they'd rather pay our fee than pay all those taxes and give it a shot, And if they can't find something, then they just simply won't identify. And then on the 46th day, we'll wire the funds back to them. But if they do put down properties on the identification form, and even if all those properties sell to other people, and it's after the 45th day, we have to hold the funds till the 180th day. And that's just by law. So that's a good thing for your clients to be aware of, is if they are planning on, needing these funds immediately, that we would want to structure it accordingly. And of course, if they want those funds back early, they can have their attorney generate a letter to us telling us that we have to return those funds. And then we'll tell them we're legally not allowed to, but we can at your risk, basically. We don't like to do it, but they have to have the funds back. But yeah, so the 1031 exchange is a huge advantage from a tax saving standpoint. And if it's something that you have a client that would like to meet about it, I'm happy to drive out here. I love coming out here, so I'll come out here every week if you want me to. But if you have, I'll get around to golf while I'm here. And then if you have any seminars that you'd like to give for your clients individually, I'm happy to do that as well. I've done happy hours in the past where I'll sponsor a little happy hour thing, and then you can have some investors come and learn about the 1031 exchange, etc. Try to drum up some business like that.
Great idea.
There's title. You can have title pull a list of non-owner occupieds and market to them about the 1031 exchange. There's a lot of ways to try to get to these investors. I will say it's really hard to get in front of investors. I understand that that's a challenge. The best way to do it is probably through education and free stuff, free food. Host a lunch or a happy hour. Yeah, so we're happy to help sponsor that for you guys. But yeah, just let me know if there's any way I can help your business. I can also help you create little flyers or something if you want that. But yeah, if you ever have any questions, Gina has all my contact info, and I'm going to send her this presentation after so you all can have it with you, and I'll have all my contact info on it. Just call or text if you have any questions. And thanks again for having me out here.
Excellent. Okay, so let me get back to this real quick. Just a couple announcements. Nice. there. And I think here we are. Okay, so Maria, did you want to make any announcement today?
If you haven't picked up your box from Prosperity, please come pick it up. I'm gonna send an email reminder to everyone. And then if you want to schedule an appointment with me for SkySlope templates to try, like a fake file from listing to transaction, I'm available. Just shoot me an email or call the front desk and I will schedule you in.
Awesome. Thank you so very much. Adam, before you leave, there's a couple quick questions here. How long can you park the exchange property for? 24 months. Can the owner move into the investment property? I think you answered that, right? Yes. Okay. And this only applies for USA citizens, I suppose.
They need to be a US citizen or have a tax ID number to do a 1031 exchange.
Okay.
If they don't, have a great resource. He's an attorney actually out here in the desert that can help fast track that.
Oh, nice. Good to know. Okay, so I think that's it for the questions. Thank you. Okay, Mason, did you want to make any announcement?
Hey guys, how are you doing?
Hi.
So I do have some advertisement deadlines coming up this week. If you guys want to participate with the Desert Sun or the Palm Springs Live Collection, I have till Thursday, and you guys can go ahead and get in there. It's $75. And if you guys are interested in booking an appointment with me, I'm here on Mondays, Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Thank you. And you might say, well, I don't have a property I can advertise. Borrow a property, call. If you see a listing that we have, seriously, guys, get out there, get exposure. There went 99 listings hit the market in the desert yesterday, right? So it is now the time to be top of mind in front of everybody so that you get these listings that are coming up. They need to see your name everywhere. So, and it's a great marketing tool. You can tear that piece out, put it in your listing presentation, and that's one sample of what you do to market and advertise. So set your appointment with Mason. Your branding done. Oh,
Change
dear.
the page.
Oh, yes. Huh? Okay, get right back here. So I really am better at this. Okay, let's just move on. Couple of little reminders, guys. There's a lot of doom and gloom headlines out there. We're all hearing it. You know, the sky is not falling. I want you to know that the sky is not falling. There are more than 11 million open jobs right now. Guess how many people are out of work?
6.2.
6.2 million. That means anybody who wants to work can work. Okay, that's a good thing, right? Even with rising interest rates, inventory is still less than a month. Okay, so we have to go a long way to hit the neutral market of 3 to 6 months inventory. So there's a lot of catching up that needs to be done before we're even there. Current stats per MLS show 1,058 homes currently for sale compared to 800 the same time period in April. So yes, more homes are hitting the market. This is fantastic news. Get out there and be excited about it. Get those buyers. Call the buyers that you tried to make offers for 6 months ago and they couldn't get their offer accepted. Call them, get back on the phone with them and say, there's more options now, let's go. And start rebuilding your pipeline, rebuilding that inventory. I think it's super important. So with that said, I want to thank all of you. I want to welcome some more agents to our office from Palm Desert. I know we'll hopefully you'll all feel welcome and we're super excited to be working with you. And I'm always here, whatever you guys need, 24/7. You can call me, you can text me, just reach out and let's rock and roll. Let's make this year your best year ever. And I'm ready to run. So with that said, thank you and finish up some food. We have a lot of food, I think, in the break room. Thank you. Winston, did you want to say hi to anybody?
Hi, everyone.
Thank you again for the food. And let's make it a great day. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yay.
Thanks, Gina.
Thank you. Let me stop sharing.
Thanks, Gina.
Thank you, Ellen.